Mike Trout here, and I'm making this video to share with you my metaphysics. You see, unlike most people who have a religion or a philosophy, I have a metaphysics that encompasses and accepts all of the 100% of ideas out there, providing that they're not imposing their will on others. So imposition of will on others, to me, that's evil, okay? When you're trying to force someone to do something, regardless of your belief system, that is evil. Ultimately, everyone should be free to do the things they want to do. As long as they're not imposing or harming others, there's no reason to stop them from doing those things. So this is some of my writings from Distributed Unconsciousness, Undaodu. The do in Undaodu stands for Distributed Unconsciousness. A Sahdu. A Sahdu is my adaptation of an Indian word, which means an enlightened one. Buddha would be a Sahdu. Jesus would be a Sahdu. Undaodu is a Sahdu. It's a generic name to kind of have a fun. It also has a meaning that I'll get into. We are all connected to the do. Some of us ignore it. Others of us know it but cannot sense it. Others sense it but do not know it and live it as one. These are self-actualized. And fewer yet know it and exist in it as two. And these are the enlightened one. These are the Undaodu duists. Duists can exist in any philosophy or religion. There are Christian duists, Muslim duists, Buddhist duists, and even atheist duists. They may not use the word duist as an identifier, but they are individuals who believe that other religions and philosophy are as valid as their own. They may not be able to articulate why this is true, but they know it and sense it. Distributed unconsciousness provides the answer. So if you're one of those individuals that basically recognizes the rights of others to believe and have faith, right? And feel that their religion is as meaningful and valid as your own, or their spiritual thinking, then you are a duist. You may not use the label. You may be a Christian duist. You may be a Muslim duist, a Buddhist duist, a Taoist duist, right? The origin of Undaodu comes from me, Michael Trout, in 2016 when I came up with the word with my friend Mike flying 30,000 feet up in the sky on our way to Shanghai. We were looking for a name for the person in the middle of the Mayan calendar, and I decided to call him Undaodu because each thing has a meaning. The un, the Dao, and the do, the Undaodu. And it was kind of fun and funny to say Undaodu. It's just kind of a fun thing to say. Undaodu, 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 Undaodu. It makes a nice little mantra, and it's meaningless. And it didn't tie into any religion or philosophy that I knew of. It's a perfectly new, untainted word. In 2004, when I moved to Japan, I spent a year in the heartland of Zen Buddhism where I live there today, not far from where Zen Buddhism started in Heiji. It's a very spiritual place in rural Japan, full of mountains and rice paddies, and not a lot of distractions. I spent a year meditating on the question, why does 99% of the people believe in something, and yet they feel they are right and everyone else is wrong? It just didn't make sense to me. And even the atheists, right? How do they fit into all of that, the other 1%? I continued wondering, I wonder if there is a unifying metaphysics. A metaphysics is just a way of embracing and looking at the world, right? That's a metaphysics. That would serve as a unifying force that would accept 100% of all belief systems. And to my satisfaction, the answer is yes. And this is what Distributed Unconsciousness ultimately seeks to provide you, or for those who are interested in wanting to know why all these folks have different what I call colorings. I imagine a world where all belief systems, whether you're an atheist duist, a Christian duist, a Buddhist duist, can all sit down together and have a meaningful conversation about their belief systems. They all believe, fundamentally, the duist does, that there is a constant, massive, instantaneous permeation of distributive data. This has been proven out in science through things like quantum teleportation, supersymmetry, entanglement, all support this idea, this constant, massive, instantaneous permeation of distributive data. Now, I believe it actually is in all things. We're just detecting it in a few things. It's unlikely that it's here and not there. It's more likely that it's everywhere, but we're detecting it just here and there, right? How we color it gives rise to our belief systems. And I'm just going to pick the atheist because the atheist simply says, I choose not to give it any color because I can't find no evidence that I should, or it should be find any evidence that I should. Therefore, it's colorless. Okay? So stop trying to shove your colors onto me. I don't see any. So what is the meanings of Undaodu? Well, the uns. Each has a duality in meaning, just as enlightenment is a duality in existence. So the unduality is this. There are as the path to self-actualization and enlightenment, you have to unravel and understand your reason for existence. That's the uns. So it's like it's the beginning of the journey. When I arrived in Japan, I was an un. I didn't understand. I wanted to understand. I literally listened to, hours and hours of books on tape that I had downloaded from major professors. It was called the Teaching Network or something, Teachers Network or something. They recorded professors, right? I still have it on my old iPod. They also represent individuals in your life that try to unravel and fail to understand you. They always try to bring you down. They always say, oh no, you're wasting your time. They're uns. And the sooner you recognize your uns and your dows and your do's, right, the better off you're going to be. So that's the duality. It represents you and others in your life. Dows are the same thing. The Tao is someone who's grounded in themselves in their one's existence. Once you find that personal philosophy that grounds you in who you are, you're a Tao. You become self-actualized. You become aware of who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. There are also Taos around you. They're the oak trees. They're the ones that stand by you in your hard times. They're the ones that you can lean on and be there to support you. They're the ones that keep you going. They're your Taos. The do's are those that are enlightened. They're the ones that exist in the do, the distributed unconscious. They feel it, they exist it, they know it's there. They existing as two. To them, to a doist, life and death are not separate things. They're one and the same. They're just part of the same cycle. They don't look at them as they don't look at death as being some sort of, failure. You're just returning to the do, where you came from. Birth and death are really no different. It's just a doorway going back and forth, or entering the same thing. The do's are also those that define you. They're your teachers. They're the ones that ultimately made you who you are. They could be a book. It could be a high school teacher. They're the ones who ultimately made you the person you are today. So what I recently discovered was the Gospel of St. Thomas. And what I've done is I've taken the words of Jesus and updated them to represent how Undaodu would say them or use them today in the 21st century. And I've also took out the word Jesus and replaced with Undaodu because Jesus was an Undaodu, right? Buddha is an Undaodu. It's a unifying spirit. There is only do, and a person who has that spirit is an Undaodu. So Undaodu said, whoever grasps the interpretation of my words will not experience death, and they will understand its true meaning. Undaodu said, Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds it, he will become troubled by the contradictions he discovers. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished by the revelations and become self-actualized, becoming one with the Undaodu. He becomes aware of the Undaodu. He becomes aware of the do. If those who lead you say, "See, the truth is in the sky," then the birds in the sky will precede you there. If they say to you, "The answer is in the ocean," or in the sea, then the fish will find it first. Rather, the answer is inside of you, and at the same time, it is outside of you. It's the do. When you come to know this, you will become self-actualized, and you will realize that it is you who is the consciousness of the living universe. But if you choose not to know yourself, you dwell in the ignorance, and it is you who will feed the ignorant. Undaodu said, "The man old in his days will not hesitate to ask a child 7 days old about his place of origin, and he will live, as he too is returning to the same origin. For many who are first will become last, and they become the Alpha and the Omega, and the one and the same." Undaodu said, "See what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become known to you. For there is nothing hidden which cannot become manifest." They questioned Undaodu and said to him, "Do you want us to fast? How shall we pray? Shall we give alms? What diet shall we observe?" He smiled. "Do not tell lies, and do not do what you hate, for all things are plain in the sight of the universe." Another word for do, right? In the sight of the do. The truth is before you, and it will become known if you open your heart to it, as all that is covered will become uncovered. Undaodu said, "Noble is the lion which becomes like a man, and cursed is the man who as a man-eating lion he becomes." And Undaodu said, "Be like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea and drew it up from the sea full of small fish. Among them, the wise fisherman found a few fine large fish. He smiles, looking around at them. He releases all of the small fish back into the ocean and chews the large fish without difficulty. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear." Undaodu said, "Now the sower went out and took a handful of seeds, his ideas, and scattered them. Some fell on the road. The birds came and gathered them up." Basically, others took his ideas. They became sophists, right? "Others fell on the rock and did not root in the soil, and did not produce ears. They hit upon people who ignored them. And others fell on thorns. They choked the seeds. They fought against them because they challenged their paradigm, and the worms ate them up. And others fell on good soil, and it produced good fruit, followers. It bore 60 per measure and 120 per measure." If you think of the birds as the sophists and the Socrates, and the rock as the ignore, and the thorns as the fight, and the good soil as the win from Gandhi's, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and finally you win. It's pretty much the same thing Jesus is saying here about gathering followers and sharing the words. Undaodu said, I cast a fire of ideas upon the world, and see, I'm guarding it until it blazes. Probably should be them. Undaodu said, this euphoria will pass away, and the one above it will pass away too. The dead are not alive, and the living will not die. Very crucial, right? In the days when you consume what is dead, you made it alive, what is alive. When you come and dwell in the light and become self-actualized, what will you do? On the day when you were one, you became two. Self-actualized is one. Now you become enlightened. But when you become enlightened, what will you do? They asked Undaodu, we know that you would depart us. Who will be our leader? Undaodu said to them, you yourself. Wherever you are to connect to the Do, for whose sake everything came into being. Undaodu said to them, compare me to someone and tell me whom I am like. Some said to him, you are like a righteous visionary. Others, you are like a wise philosopher. I said to him, teacher, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are like. Undaodu said, I am not your teacher, but you have drunk my words and have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring which I have measured out. Undaodu took me and withdrew and explained to me the three words. And explained the three words to me, Undaodu. When I returned, my companions asked me, what did Undaodu say to you? I replied, if I explain to you just one of the words, which he told me, you will pick up stones and throw them at me. A fire will come forth out of the stone and burn you up. Meaning decisiveness. You all start bickering and fighting that I lied and everything else. Undaodu said to them, if you fast, you will give rise to cravings for yourself. And if you pray or chant in front of others, you will be condemned by them. And if you give alms to appease others, you will harm your own inner spirit. When you go into any land and walk about in the districts, if they receive you, eat what they set before you, and heal the sick among them. For what goes into your mouth or ears will not defile you, but that which issues hastily from your mouth, it is which will defile you. Undaodu said, when you greet anyone new, smile at them, for you have found a lost brother or sister. For every man, woman, or child, wherever they are, aware or not, is one with the Do. So basically, when you see someone, you're looking at the Do. They're an expression of the Do. They may be ignorant of it, but you can at least greet them that way. Undaodu said, men think perhaps that it is peace which I have come to cast upon the world. They do not know that I bring dissension against the Ouroboros that threatens all life in the world. I have come to cast it out of the earth, fire, sword, and war, and you will stand solitary. Thanks. I'm not sure about the fire, sword, and war, right? It's the blockchain. Cast it out of the earth, and you will stand solitary.